Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's time. Forge of Champions is here. We're going to get things underway live from Barcelona. I'm Dalsey, joined by Celtic Tiger and Ox for the first of many Forge of Champions tournaments to come. Gentlemen, how you doing?
I'm looking forward to this. We, haven't seen a huge amount from UK just yet. I'm hoping this will be the highest level so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been watching the open qualifiers been going on, and it's even more exciting to have us watching it and being able to cast it as well. So
yeah, well welcome to the casting decks, Ox. It's great to have you here as well. And it's Forge of Champions. It's the newest and greatest in UK League of Legends. The largest tournament ever to come, as far as I'm concerned. A 50,000 prize pool, which is just great for the UK scene. But I'm sure many people at home are kind of going, what is Forge of Champions? It's all very brand new. To break things down, let's quickly jump over the format for the 8 weeks, I guess, of regular play. There's going to be 4 qualifying tournaments, which each one of those tournaments being separated into 2 stages: an open stage where anyone can sign up to compete in it, and then a scoring stage where 8 of the premiership teams from the previous season will battle up against the 8 teams that qualify from the open qualifier.
yeah, and it's important to note that you accrue points from each qualifying tournament. Those will lead to you qualifying for the grand finals, hence why they're called qualifying tournaments. But each tournament is worth more than the last. So, the first one, you still get a considerable amount of points, but the later ones will be worth more and more as we get towards the grand final. So, very important to get involved if you want to compete.
And I mean, the grand finals are great, that's where most of the prize pool money is held, but Celtic Tiger, there's even more important stuff that you can win at the grand finals.
Yeah, I mean, you have 2 EU Masters spots that are up for grabs, so not just 1.
2.
There is a second,
it's amazing,
just in case you can't take that top spot. But I'm looking forward to seeing who ends up coming out on top first, but certainly in the early weeks, they still have all to play for.
Yeah, I do believe one of the spots goes to the highest point scorer during regular season. The other one's won by just winning the grand finals outright. So, you've got that spot awarded for consistency and the spot for the person who can show up on the day.
Playoffs.
And the playoffs are going to be live here from Barcelona as well. It's pretty exciting stuff coming through as, the LVP partners with UK eSports. Really exciting to get things underway. And of course, we'd love to hear from you guys as we kick things off. If you want to get involved on Twitter, it's at LVP UK for any social media to keep up to date for anything. And of course, use the hashtag Forge of Champions 1 since it's the first of the many qualified tournaments coming. We're going to focus our energy on this first one. For anyone who misses stuff, YouTube VODs obviously going to get uploaded the day after to youtube.com/LVP UK. Everything is pretty much just LVP UK, except for the most important link that you have to memorize, which is forgeofchampions.com. That's where the tournament signups are, and signups are live now for the second open qualifier, which starts July the 6th. So if you are interested in competing, you're from the UK, a resident, or maybe you've got a couple of UK friends and you want to compete, you need 3 UK residencies and Northern and Ireland as well. That's the important thing.
Cover that one.
Yeah, Ireland, of course, included here. Then head on over to forgeofchampions.com, get signed up. If you're a solo player, sign up anyway, and we'll pair you with someone who's similar to your elo, and that way you can get a taste of UK League of Legends. Who knows who's going to be the next UK League of Legends star?
Yeah, might meet a new teammate if you sign up as a solo player. Might get an opportunity, and we've seen so far the open teams have done exceptionally well considering things. So we've got 2 who have made it through to the next stage, and we'll get to see them later on. We're actually going to see the bracket now. Yeah,
let's pull up the bracket and see which 16 teams are competing in this first scoring tournament. Of course, 8 of them coming from the open qualifier, and then the other 8 are the premiership teams. Wind and Rain took out Warwick eSports in the first matchup of that round of 16, with Hyperion eSports, a premiership team, losing to Phelan, the Irish organization. So really excited to see how they perform in the matchup later on tonight. Excel, obviously a favorite here in UK, took out Overheat, no problems. In fact, smashed them as far as I was concerned. And M&M Gaming taking out the Newcastle Jaguars in a fairly close, 30-minute affair most games. Enclave Gaming, one of the first pentakills of the tournament, went over to Rifty as they took out Digital Warfare, with Diabolus taking out Forgotten in Time.
Also managed to get a pentakill on Diabolus. It was their AD carry, got one on Kaiser, so not to be
Not
outshined.
as impressive, but you know,
True.
it's fine.
Kaiser versus Darius, who wins out in that one. The Misfit Academy desolate with the super duper giant truck team taking out Barrage eSports, another one of those open qualifier teams. In fact, a new team, one of the UK collegiate teams who are competing via the open qualifier, making it all the way, and they're going to be playing Misfits Academy tomorrow.
Yeah, reigning from the University of Exeter, and they've had an impressive showing so far, sort of have their own meta. But today, our game is Phelan versus Wind and Rain. Before that, probably should point out we're playing on patch 8.13. It came out today. Some exciting changes. Dan, what's one thing that you think is pretty important? Yeah, so I think the big things for me are they've reduced the early death timers, and they've also increased the bounties. So, you know, if a player gets a killing spree, or you can now actually get a gold shutdown and 2 kills. So it's just things to sort of cut down the ability for a team to snowball. I mean, there won't be as much priority on the early game.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and feed early, you're fine. But the other point is definitely that, you know, you've seen some junglers start to get buffed, you've seen Guinsoo's finally start to get nerfed.
Right.
Maybe it's enough, Phantom Hit's still ridiculous, maybe it's not, so we'll see how these all play out now.
And I mean, one of the champions that loved Guinsoo's the most was Aatrox, who got reworked here in patch 8.13. Sorry to disappoint you, he will be banned globally for the first week of Forge of Champions to give these guys some time to play around with the rework. I mean, he looks bloody awesome as far as I'm concerned. I'm definitely going to be playing him when I get back. But
feeding on him.
feeding on him when I get back.
Same.
Yeah, thanks, Ox. But I mean, let's focus. Wind and Rain versus Phelan. A pretty exciting matchup for this Irish organization who've made it all the way through here to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I mean, an Irish organization, they have got, you know, a UK lineup. Let's be perfectly blunt on that one. But at the same time, you know, there is some representation coming through here with the Phelan org. They have played around a lot in the Irish tournaments. And I'm hoping to see them show up, even though they're coming in probably as the underdogs up against Wind and Rain.
Yeah, I think so. Wind and Rain, you know, they had a great performance at the last Premiership split. They managed to get third, and then they also competed, not with the exact same roster, but in the EU Masters. Not the greatest performance, but still, it was a very difficult tournament to compete in. And I think they are the favourites overall.
No, I mean, it was an okay performance. I'm hoping they have a better performance against other UK teams, because the UK struggled. I mean, there were teams that struggled more, but certainly EU Masters wasn't the best for them.
I mean, I think some UK teams did all right. I think XL
had some good showings.
Did okay. I mean, compared to the German teams, I think we can safely say.
Ooh, poor Meisterschaft. They tried their hardest.
They got 1 win
and 10 losses. they gave it a good go.
They tried.
UK greater than Germany is all we need to pull away from that one. I mean, when you look at that top lane for Wind and Rain, of course, Kerberos is just the split-pushing king. He just wants to win that 1v1 matchup, which is going to be potentially tough for Akkers. He's possibly the youngest player competing in this scoring stage. That's not confirmed, but he's 17 years old. That's pretty damn young, and you know, kind of a rising star. This is pretty much his like UK debut at the top level of UK play.
My biggest worry for him is he tends to go towards these tankier champions, even the Gnar being his more carry-oriented pick. My worry is that Kerberos just walks in, goes Urgot, decides to just run at him, and I mean, we've seen Fiora banned as well against Kerberos because that does great into tanks. I'd worry about Akkers' champ pool up against Kerberos, but I would love to see them surprise me.
Yeah, I particularly think someone like Kerberos, who is a veteran of the UK scene and has had some great performances in the past 2 split, he knows how to exploit a rookie top laner, particularly one with a short champion pool, so it might be difficult for Phelan to bounce back from that.
And I mean, when you look at the other side of the map, you know, the bot lane, we've got 2 players here who are really just trying to prove themselves. Fax playing for Wind and Rain, it's kind of his return after a big break up against Aether, who feels like he has something to prove as far as how he can perform at this top level.
Yeah, I think Fax is someone who has debuted in the UK scene quite a while ago on Bulldogs, but did sort of take a step away and has returned. UK have a very stacked pool of AD carries that actually get exported to other leagues. That's how strong they are. And Fax, I think the break was a big part of it, but just hasn't quite managed to make that level. But, you know, he's wanting to prove that.
Well, we are going to be jumping into picks and bans for this first matchup of the Forge of Champions. Very exciting. Wind and Rain on that blue side going to be banding up first against Phelan. I mean, what are we feeling?
I would expect potentially this Lucian starts to get banned out from Phelan. We've seen both AD carries tend to lean towards it. It's a likely first pick if they leave it up.
Yeah, this Irelia makes sense. Everyone plays Irelia as whether it's top, whether it's mid lane, whether it's the bot. You know, he's just such a universal pick right now. Literally getting banned away against Notley, who's kind of had some carry performances. Played Nidalee yesterday, had a pretty good performance on it.
I think the funny thing is that Nolte used to play for Phelan, so they obviously have an idea of what he's most comfortable on. Maybe this Nidalee being one of those picks, decide to take it away from him before he can go for it.
And that's important to just highlight, you know, for Nolte here, this is him performing against his ex-organization, and so on Wind and Rain, quite a formidable team as far as UK is concerned. Obviously he placed third, like you mentioned earlier, Orcs. He's found his home here, and so he's going to really want to show that he deserves to be at that top level. No surprise, Zoe being banned away here. Vlad, a fantastic flex pick, although slightly less common.
Yeah, well, both these champions, the Vlad and the Zoe, have had slight nerfs in this patch, but I don't think it's enough. Just a little AP ratio thing. Still very strong picks, and obviously now the team wanting to face them out. And then the Tillia coming through as well. Something that, again, like these other picks, you can flex into a lot of lanes. Functions jungle as well, which the other two don't. So unsurprising they not want to put themselves up against that.
And the Tillia is a pick that Proper Panda has been, you know, performing pretty well on across the open qualifier as well as the scoring stage. You know, a veteran of the scene as well, going to try and bring his experience with his vast hero champion pool.
Yeah, and he's actually been over in the Irish scene himself. He has played with previous rosters and done quite well there. I'm interested to see now on a team where he's kind of come back from a break himself.
Right.
Whether he's willing to able to perform at the highest level.
Earlier, we're talking about what we're going to see in the bot lane, and you said that Lucian was pretty much just going to be first picked if you can, and there we go. Lucian instantly picked for Fax.
Really high priority pick. Both Ada and Fax haven't really bent to this meta. They still want to play the marksman pick, and the best one right now is the Lucian.
Yep.
The interesting thing to ask is what will Ada pick up in response, because I feel like he has to guarantee this pick before the next rotation of bans, otherwise they can really cut out his champion pool.
Excited to see Nocturne coming through here for Proper Panda. Huge utility with that ultimate, but just such a strong jungler.
I think he's been pick banned in LCK, and there's a really good reason. Even just the buffs to him that originally brought him back into the meta, that increased time in complete darkness for the enemy team. And of course, just the fact that his global presence can synergize really well with things like Shen that we've seen picked in conjunction with him.
It'll be interesting to see if Shen does get picked up during this first round of picks. Brom going to be locked in for that support role. We'll have to see if Phelan do focus their pick onto that marksman role. That Camille coming through, more likely to go up towards that top lane, you would feel, for Kerberos?
Yeah, big nerfs on this patch. We are on 8.13, just to remind you all. Big nerfs to the hook shot for the jungle Camille, but still pretty relevant top lane, and so it's likely to see it top. I actually like this strategy because Phelan have sort of backed themselves into a corner. Now you're sort of forced to pick a marksman on this third pick before the next wave of bans, and that means Kerberos has put them in a position. He now has a Camille. You either pick a counter for it, or you pick the AD carry, and either way they're going to ban out what you don't pick. Okay,
well, we'll see if it does come through before that second round of bans, but that Lissandra for the mid lane is an interesting one for Crossman.
I think the biggest thing for me is I'm looking at Camille and Lissandra put together. That's a huge amount of single target, I do not want you to play the game kind of idea, and it's all about whether they can find those picks consistently, and I like if they lean towards this Ezreal pick, it's safe enough to try stay out of that kill range.
Of course, yeah, you just get out as soon as possible, play from that back line, and then go in when necessary. Second round of bans coming through. When you look at what hasn't really been picked up here, it's, you know, the support role, it's that jungle role, potentially maybe that Camille stays in the jungle for Wind and Rain. On the other side, it's definitely that top and mid.
Yeah, I think based on the patch changes, I feel like it's unlikely they'll put the Camille into the jungle. But one thing, I feel like Wind and Rain are going to start banning out their solo lane on the opposition. Obviously, top lane hasn't been picked by Phelan, mid lane hasn't been picked, and they were forced into picking that Ezreal, so now you can ensure a good matchup for your solo laners if you do end up putting the Camille on top.
Yeah, it's going to be that Morgana being banned in the I guess that support role. Akusuni potentially wants to take that one up. The Ornn getting banned away here makes a lot of sense. Aka's, like you mentioned, huge tank role, and when you talk about tanks in the top lane, Ornn is pretty much the god tier right now.
And I like, because you've locked in the Braum, which is the classic counter to Ornn, that could well have been your next pick. Once a team fight kicks off, once you have Nocturne and you can't see where the Ram is coming from, it actually becomes really difficult to deal with in a team fight. Again, one of the many synergies with that darkness and why we see Nocturne get so much priority.
Seems like Phelan's assuming that Camille is going to the jungle with the Darius ban. Shen gets banned as well, which makes sense since the Nocturne was there. You don't want to allow that global pressure.
Yeah, Shen also a good matchup into Camille. You can block her auto attack, which is a big function of the damage in the top lane. Yeah, interesting to see what's going to get picked up here by Phelan. I feel like mid would be the safer one if you 100% know that Lissandra's... Well, I mean, not 100%, but you're pretty
yeah,
safe.
you never know.
that the Lissandra's going mid lane. And yeah, they do end up picking an all-around. It is a safe pick and actually got buffed. It was a very, very slight buff this patch, but 2-second cooldown on the W, so a little bit stronger, but just a safe pick into the Lissandra.
Yeah, no, and it makes sense, you know, whilst we're not going to touch too much on the craziness that bot lane meta can be, and you know the fact that you just hit random and you've got a champion that's going to perform very well in that matchup. Lissandra would make more sense in the mid lane, so with that Orianna picked up. Now for Wind and Rain, it's their chance to really decide how they're going to shut down. Jax in the jungle could potentially go up top, but you know we're assuming that Camille is going to be in that top side. And then this Aatrox is being shown. That's just to tease you. He is banned.
Showing up the splash art. It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. I definitely like it. There's a Zillion coming through for the support pick.
Yeah, so we don't 100% know where the Jax and the Camille are going because, you know, I think like Wind and Rain have done this on purpose because you could tell Phelan didn't know, hence them banning the Darius. But I feel the stronger thing to do would be put the Jax jungle. It's a strong jungle pit. Tanky has good clear, especially with the Cinderhulk changes to make it easy to clear. Put the Camille top. It's a pick Ross is known for. And if the enemy team Phelan goes a tank, as they're looking to do here, then you have a good lane matchup for him to snowball. Yep,
there it is. Malphite locked in. We've got our rosters established here, gentlemen. What are you thinking? What's the initial thoughts, Ox?
I think there's a lot of team fight potential with Phelan. There's a lot of engaged potential, you know, with the Malphite knocked up and follow up on their side. So they clearly looking to team fight. But on the other side of Wind and Rain, I mean, you could easily just set up a split push when Kerberos gets ahead. Lissandra also great at split pushing, and then she can just move easily and it's hard to pin her down. So sort of different routes that the teams can sort of get there, but I think the early game is always going to be important on this patch.
Yeah, like I'm looking at giant wombo combo from Phelan. You got Malphite Orianna, which by themselves is enough, but then on top of that you've Braumult, you've Nocturne flying his way in, Ezreal to go across that. Huge amount of just crazy team fight. And I kind of like this when you're coming in as the underdogs. You're like, okay, if we can find a 5v5, we can just force them to fight us on our terms. And you do see this a lot when teams that are on paper worse manage to pull out wins. It's because that they forced the other team to play at their pace.
Yeah, and that's going to be really important. You know, for every team that competed in the round of 16 yesterday, it was 2 O's across the board. This is where we're kind of expecting this quarterfinal stage where these teams might start clashing a little bit. Best of 3s, which allows for adaptation on that second game. Much needed adaptation, especially if you're on the losing side of that. Yeah, and I think the mentality is really important as well because, you know, when you have more veterans on your team, they're more used to playing from behind, being put in difficult positions. And I think that's really vital because if you go 1-0 down, the series isn't over. You just have to sort of reset your mental, go, we can still win this. But for quite a few of these players who are new, you know, Akaz is a new player. He's been put this matchup, Malphite and Camille. If he gets snowballed on heavily and gets punished by this Nalty Kerberos UK combo, could be an easy route to just tilt and struggle in that second game in the series. It's going to be really important for Phelan to find their feet here as they go up against one of these Premiership teams. I mean, we've talked a little bit about Wind and Rain, who they are. Phelan, probably the more newer of these sides. Jarden, kind of the macro shot caller for the team, really looking to try and find those advantages. Whereas Ezreal's Aether looking at that micro play and trying to win those team fights for the team.
I think that makes sense. I mean, especially when you've gone something like Ezreal, you can always sit at the back and go, this is where everyone should position. You don't have to full commit to a fight like the rest of your roster wants to. You are pretty much the one person playing back on that kind of comp.
Yeah, and you know, Phelan as a roster, really looking to try and break their way through here. Interesting story. Vigo, the support player for Phelan, apparently can't afford to upgrade his you know, gamer gear. So he plays with a keyboard that shocks him consistently, a mouse which drags. I mean, justice for Vigo is all I'm saying. I think he needs to win this round here for the team so they can get that prize pool money so they can upgrade his gaming gear.
Well, the good news is he actually already has won some prize money. All the 8 teams still in have actually won £500 each between them at this stage. Even if they get knocked out now, obviously able to earn more if they keep continuing through the tournament. So hopefully you can afford a new keyboard and mouse.
I mean, 100 would get you like a decent keyboard and mouse. I mean, one that wouldn't shock you for sure.
That's a good
But I think
start.
if you go further than this stage, you know, you're looking at the top 4 prizes. That might actually get you, you know, a proper high-level gaming mouse and keyboard.
I mean, maybe he's going to come first and just get a whole new rig.
Yeah.
I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? let's talk about points for this first qualifying tournament, just to kind of go over the structure for those who maybe are tuning in just now. So the Forger Champions, 4 qualifying tournaments break it into 2 stages. The open stage, where anyone can qualify, and then of course that scoring stage, and everyone's looking to try and gain points via their position in the scoring stage, with the top amount of points for this scoring stage being worth 2,200. And so that's what's on grabs if you come first.
Yeah, considerable chunk just to get this early on in the 4G Champions. You know, I feel like any team who manages to put that way will be happy. Especially it's not just the points, but the confidence boost.
Absolutely.
From establishing yourself as right now the #1 team in the UK.
Yeah, and a lot of people looking at this as well. We were talking about it. There's this spot in the EU Masters for the people who get the most points.
Yep.
If you start early, it's going to be a lot easier through the next tournaments to make sure you keep on top of those points.
And for these open qualifier teams like Phelan, like Super Duper Giant Truck Team, who we'll see tomorrow, consistency is the key, because they have to continue to qualify through the open qualifiers. Of course, their seeding will change based on how they do in the open qualifiers. I believe it was actually Super Duper Giant Truck Team who beat Phelan in the final of the open qualifier, so that, you know, first and second seeded for themselves. So they need to come back each week. They need to be consistent, because it's those later rounds in the scoring stages where the big points are on for grabs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you haven't sort of done so well in this tournament, and maybe you haven't participated, there's still so much opportunity to get back into it. The points just increases massively. Still going to be prize money throughout, so definitely sign up if you're interested in competing.
Yeah, sign-ups for the next open qualifier happening July the 6th. For ForgerChampions.com, go sign up. Solo players welcome, teams welcome of all skill levels. We're accepting pretty much anyone who wants to fight for that title of best UK.
I mean, even you could sign up.
I could, even I could sign up, and that says a lot about the Forger Champions. It's all inclusive. You don't have to be best League of Legends support substitute player in the UK. Orcs here, as you know, credited by Leaguepedia.
Yeah.
You can be me as well.
I mean, you can even be an Irish player and join. Considering we only have one of those so far, I would not mind to see if
one that we know of. Maybe they're hiding.
They'd have to be hiding pretty damn well.
Maybe the Irish super team, you know, they missed this one out. They were busy beating SKT, you know.
Yeah, they were hiding over there in Korea. I can see it.
Yeah, and then next tournament is to come in and stomp everyone. What would they be called? This Irish super team.
I think they just go with our super team. They're really uncreative.
Yeah, why not?
They were over in Korea. You know, their English is starting to get a bit spotty. They've been over there so long. So they finally come back. They just go, Irish super team, let's go.
I'll be honest, I barely understand half of yours.
How rude.
Going into game very shortly. Ox, you're going to be sitting this one out as me and Celtic get onto the Rift. But what? I mean...
What?
Not yet.
I mean, you insulted me. Get off the desk.
Oh, right, okay.
See you later, Ox. It's time. It's game 1 of War versus Phelan, and Celtic Tiger. We're bringing the action.
Absolutely. And again, we're saying the Phelan are coming in as the underdogs, but you know, it's starting it right from the beginning. Let's see if they can have a strong opening. Give them the strong mental to continue in this best of 3.
Strong mental, very much important as everyone finds their way across the Rift to figure out where they're going to be starting off here. I mean, what are you thinking? Early game, where are we focusing up here?
I think, you know, normally you go, okay, Kerberos, he's going to try and make himself known in the early game. Against Malphite, that's going to be nearly impossible. So my focus is starting to move towards this bottom lane where you have the Lucian, you have the Zilean, and I love this Zilean pick in the bot lane because Zilean as a specific in-lane counter to Braum is hilarious because as soon as Braum puts up the shield, you only need to vaguely throw your double bomb in his direction and it immediately jumps to him and stuns.
Oh my goodness. All right, so it's almost a counter pickup really coming out here from Akasuni. You know, both these players, like we mentioned, in this bot lane, really wanting to prove something. Fax has kind of been out of the scene for quite some time. When he came into it, it was kind of like Fax is going to be the next big thing, really. You know, has the skill, he has the talent, but on Bulldogs, didn't really have the best performance. I mean, the UK stacked when it comes to AD carries anyway. Yeah,
as Ox was putting, I think AD carry definitely the best role coming out of the UK scene. And it's a nice matchup that we're getting to focus on here that should showcase that. Aether himself, of course, hasn't really, you know, done a huge amount yet. But as this micro shot caller, especially in team fights, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do.
Yeah, no, I'm really kind of happy to see that Aether's kind of stuck it through with the marksman ever since those changes came to the bot lane. Didn't, you know, jump on the hype realistically, wanted to make sure that he was ready for it, and we're kind of seeing teams head back over towards that marksman role anyway.
We actually saw Proper Panda just walk into the enemy jungle, grab blue buff, there was no vision on it, and just walk right out again.
That's kind of invading you need to see here. You know, Proper Panda's a veteran when it comes to the jungle. It's going to be kind of on his back to start to establish those leads.
I mean, he said he played anything but Nunu, but decided to lean towards that Nunu style. I'm going to walk into your jungle. I don't care if you see me. The classic Nunu, this time on Nocturne, a much more meta-focused champion.
Classic Nunu, this time on Nocturne.
I like it.
I like that as well. Really just going to be power farm, you'd think, to get that paranoia activated. Though in the bot lane, you kind of have the opportunity to potentially catch one of these. You know, I say that they're so mobile with Zillion and Lucian. It's going to be very hard for any ganks to come out unless you really catch them overextended.
Yeah, and again, while we were talking about how Lucian and Zillion can play very far up, it's still going to be mostly gated by the fact that Ezreal plays so far back. It will mean that the lane's constantly pushing, and if they can maybe start to move towards a dive, it could get very dicey very quickly.
Well, we actually are seeing the Nocturne starting to move towards the bot side. Is spotted out, though, on a ward there, so no action to be had, respect shown.
I think it's smart. I mean, you go, okay, our bot lane's always going to be pushed in. I should try walk there, even pre-6's Nocturne, because once he doesn't have to close that gap because they're so far pushed, he can still make something work, but this time, spot it out.
Kerberos not having the most fun of times up in the top side against this Malphite. Really just, he's banging his head up against a rock.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to top laners in comms whenever they're up against these really tanky matchups, and it's always the same thing. Come out here and fight me like a man! But instead, no. Farm under tower.
I respect that as well. You know, Akers, he's looking to try and make a name for himself. On this roster for Phelan, really just facilitating the rest of the team with his picks, making sure that he can provide that strong engage, as well as, you know, the damage soak up as well, to keep Aether nice and safe.
I mean, I'm still leaning towards that Wombo. I really want to see it as the level 6 approaches, the classic bot lane party. Would not mind seeing that once again with Malphite trying to TP his way down there and Nocturne ulting too.
Alrighty. Proper Panda just farming away, as is this Jax. We got an Ocean Drake as our first one here. It doesn't look like any team is going to be rushing to get that one. I mean, it's only really when you get that Infernal. Ooh, a stop onto Fax there, trying to backport. Both these marksmen, they have their teleports, so...
That's a really key stop, though, because Fax has no mana. You can actually, as Aether and Vigo here, manage to push him up because he has very few spells left to make sure the wave stays up. Now a much more even lane to back off, and Fax will not get the free back he was looking for. Yeah, very important, like you mentioned. Is going to go for it now, going to make sure that he's nice and safe right at the back of that bush. And then he can teleport back into lane. Realistic, potentially he could even just walk. You know, there's not really any threat at this point. Yeah, but you managed to get the freeze back into Ezreal Braum without the wave hitting tower. You now TP back as the Ezreal. You actually get an XP advantage here.
Kind of the same thing going up in the top side. Akker's hard pushed into the turret here where Kerberos is like, well, you're not going to fight me. I'm just going to freeze this here. So not great, really, for the Malphite. Yeah,
I think he was trying to hard push in, and it just did not work out for him.
I mean, that's kind of what happens when you hard push into the Camille. You know, a veteran like Kerberos is just going to punish you for that kind of mistake.
Yeah, and we were just talking about how Hookshot got nerfed. We actually mentioned that in the pick ban, why that might move Camille away from the jungle slightly. And Kerberos has just leaned into that. You know, I'm maxing E. It's a bold choice, but it was only the base damage is nerfed. You still get that attack speed, so maybe deciding that attack speed slow from Malphite is crippling. Let's see if I can counter it slightly with hookshots.
Both these teams just taking it slow and steady, but we're going to get level 6s coming up soon for Proper Panda, which is where we're going to really start to see that action start to unfold. Nolty, despite the fact that his blue buff got stolen away, has beaten Proper Panda to level 6 on this Jax.
I think going for that blue buff kind of messed up his pathing slightly, maybe not as quick as the Jax in the early clear because of it, but certainly should still be doing fine on Nocturne.
We'll have it soon. Then the Paranoia. I'm assuming we're targeting bot lane here, not really going for anything else. I mean, you've got a Lysandra who's just going to hop into an Ice Tomb and it's just going to be like, yeah, okay, good gank. So Fax has to be kind of the priority, but already level 6 for this Zillion, so makes things a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, and again, this is one of the strengths when you're up against Wombo Combo. Zillion's really nice because he can make sure at least one member doesn't go down.
Here we go, we're going in, looking for this first one. Proper Panda gonna flash on top of Crossman. Flashing away, here comes the Jax. Orianna ult locking up, but it's not going well. Proper Panda will go low. First blood going on over to War as Jarden trying to flash away from Nolty, trying to escape. Red buff burning. Camille coming down as well, but Nolty does not need it. Nice turnaround from War.
Yeah, just the extra range there from Jax on the W managed to secure that kill, but I think they were just baited into that fight, and it was really good positioning from Nolty to be ready for the 2v2 straight away.
Yeah, no, that's a really important thing, is that really recognizing the fact that Proper Panda would be looking for that target, and War able to collapse instantly on top of that one.
I think you predicted it based on the path, and you saw Jadran suddenly decided he'd play super far up in the lane, started going for that Lissandra. You know Lissandra's level 6, so you go, okay, Nocturne must be here to back up, and Nolty immediately there as well.
Yeah, and an ulti wasted from Proper Panda. Yes, they got the kill, but was it worth it is the question. Phelan now behind slightly.
Yeah, and I think you already saw that in the early game. We were talking about it, the blue buff was taken, but it was actually a trade of blues as well. So it's just left Proper Panda trailing behind.
Yeah, we're going to see that replay as Proper Panda dived on in. Love the use of the tomb.
Yeah, it was actually really smart. It was as the fear was going to come in, and then in came Nolty to fight. Crossman tanky enough to survive the Orianna burst early on, and then walks up, makes sure to CC Jadran just long enough for Nolty to finish off this kill.
And whilst the replay was going on, the Ocean Drake just got taken as well. Nolty just able to find that attack. Potentially got more going on. That Drake going over to Phelan. Proper Panda goes, okay, well, I didn't quite land the first gank, but I can just go up solo Drake. A hard push came out of Aether and Vigo with the True Shot Barrage as well.
I think while a lot of people do, like, Ocean Drake is strictly probably one of the least impactful Drakes. However, when it's most useful is in this early laning phase. When you're on a Wombo combo,
okay. Kerberos with the back gank. How'd he get there? Hextech Ultimatum will lock us all up, and already Phelan are falling.
I will say, we were laughing, you know, he maxes the hook shot. What it does allow, though, leaning back towards why Camille Jungle takes it, is it allows for these really great gank paths. And he's found it here in the mid lane. Yeah, that's going to be first brick going over to War, who are just starting to snowball this. Phelan not really finding what they need here, and frustration you can see from Aether as he throws out all his abilities before backporting. This is where experience versus, you know, potentially that lack of experience here at the top stage of United Kingdom eSports is really important. And when you see that it's specifically the jungler who's started to slightly fall behind, it's generally a showing that one team has had the stronger macro control. And I think that's what we're seeing here from Wind and Rain. Pure experience showing, but actually...
Here comes another gank, but hookshot is just, it's a pretty good ability. Gets you out of dangerous situations.
I shouldn't even stop my point, to be honest. I mean,
Akka's held the ultimate, so yeah. That's kind of how clear they were that that wasn't going to happen. And potentially tilt coming out of Proper Panda.
You actually see Fax there trying to clear the wave, not quite used to the 8.13 culling, which does half the damage it used to the minions.
Yeah, no, it's pretty big reduce of damage, and has to then stick around a little bit longer than he wanted to. Does have that teleport up still, so if necessary can get back into lane as quickly as possible. At this point, we're kind of starting to get to the stage where these teams are looking towards that Rift Herald. Maybe with the success so far that Kerberos and Nolty have been able to achieve for the team, it's going to be fairly hard to contest. But you have to always remember, Wombo combo, that Orianna Shockwave, you've got the Malphite ult, and if Vigo was to roam up towards that, then really you just have so much knockdown.
Yeah, I mean, if you manage to get a 5v5 is the big thing here for Phelan. They need to start getting to a position where they can force fights. Instead, they're being pushed back, they're having their towers taken, and pretty much every lane now under pressure. Yeah, and look at this. Into the jungle we go, Nolty and Kerberos moving on up, and potentially even gifting that red buff over to the top lane. We'll have to see. It's just constant aggression coming out of Nolty. Aether and Vigor doing their best to try and win this bot lane matchup, and so far so good, I think. You know, as the items started to come through for this Ezreal, a bit more damage available, and they're really pushing them back. Yeah, and I think it's a good start, but I'm not sure how much it's worth yet. I think you really need to keep that tower alive for a good bit longer if you're going to allow your Wombo combo to come off. And I'd be worried for Phelan right now, as they have Nolty just taking their top side entirely. And with no dragon up, there's not much you can get on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, Proper Panda potentially has to roam down to the bot side. You see Jarden kind of grouping up potentially, but it is spotted with the wards there.
And you've seen Lucian and Zilean, as you were saying, slow down the push. They know that they're getting no backup. Let's focus towards the top side. They secure that tower because Malphite just can't contest.
Yeah, there's nothing they can do. Tower goes down in the top side. Kerberos able to finish that one off. 2 towers to 0 so far, and the gold starting to swing War's way.
Yeah, and you can see they're already willing to hand over the red buff to Fax because, of course, the next focus will be this bot tower. You can probably get all 5 members there. Actually, they're taking the Rift Herald in the meantime, so it'll be a very quick take if they decide to use that there.
Yeah, solo as well, which means that it's slightly less obvious that it's happening with Kerberos up in the top side and Sandra there in the mid lane. No real reason for Phelan to know this is going on.
I think the smart thing is to keeping people in lane, though, because you don't want to give them a team fight. That's what this comp excels at. If you leave people solo it, find the 1v1s, much easier to be to deal with War's comp.
There's the Rift Herald being taken. Now Nulty will have that to kind of exploit. We'll see where he does put it. Obviously, you mentioned already, we've already got those outer turrets down in the top and the mid, so bot lane is where we expect the aggression to come next.
Yeah, I'm not sure they'll even have to use the Herald, though, as they can just try fight in this area, and they should be able to get the tower relatively quickly, as it was pushed up for so long in the early game.
Yeah, it's pretty low already. It's not doing so healthy, and so you can already see with Kerberos walking all the way down to the bot side. Proper Panda is here. He's ready for the counter gank. We'll see how this one does go on. Fax just clearing up this lane. Camille going to be noticed here, trying to try and take out this Rift Herald. Vigo shows some love so far. No real commitment to this. Can't really do anything here for if you're feeling, you know, you're kind of grouped up. You know the fight's potentially coming, but what can you do about it?
You have Malphite in the top lane. He's waiting with the TP. He wants to push in the wave because they know Camille's not there. But at the same time, hard for him to find an opening in these fights because Wind and Rain are willing to play back when necessary, and we've seen that in the bot lane.
Yeah, it's a good ward actually, right behind the bot lane there, which War I think are wary of. There was a pink ward popped into the bush. Gonna give this buff over to Jarden. Of course, the changes. Not that we need to talk about them yet because Jarden obviously going damage here, but I mean, you can now clear those jungle camps with your Cinderhulks and stuff, but of course the large buffs won't be cleared. Well, kind of important. Don't want to steal that away accidentally. Fax gonna take down this turret. Is alone though. Proper Panda diving in. Good flash over the ward. Here comes the rest of the crew. It is going to be a lockup. Everyone diving in. The Wombo combo. Akis is behind. He's looking for more. Teleports late from Kerberos. And the first kill's going over to Jarden here. Lockup onto Lysandra. It's 2 apiece so far. And the rest are now falling back. Kerberos diving away. 2 kills going over to Jarden. Phelan were all over that.
Yeah, and I think they managed to find the team fight we were talking about. They get all 5 members in, and a really strange and late Zilean ult means that Lucian is in a massive heap of trouble as soon as the rest of Phelan managed to collapse on it. And this will secure them a tower and realistically swing what was becoming a really large gold lead slightly further away from them.
I mean, you said it so perfectly. The one thing that War did not want to do early on in this mid-game is team fight, because that is where Phelan excel. Now with this Ocean Drake, Phelan can find their second here, so good Drake control coming through and starting to have a bit of comeback options.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably not super happy that they picked themselves up 2 Ocean Drakes, but certainly it will at least be better for them when we were talking survivability.
If you're not happy that you picked up 2 Ocean Drakes, the next one's a Cloud, so unlucky. All right, let's jump into the replay, see exactly how that happened.
You see, Nocturne starts off the fight, and they just chunk out Lucian to begin with, and Zilean ults when no one's nearby, and now he's under pressure from both Akkers and Jadran, who get a really, really good flank, and they just can't take out the backline from Phelan. Perfect cleanup now.
I mean, Kerberos is all about the split push. That teleport was so late from him. Akkers had already ulted into the fight before the teleport was even channeled from that Camille. It may have made a difference, we will never know, but you look at the health bars there, Aether's low, Vigor's low, and Proper Panda as well. There's the Rift Herald. It does look like the counter push is coming out of Wind and Rain here as the first tier 2 turret in the bot lane will fall. Good use of the Rift Herald.
Quick response, which is the smart thing to do. You know, they used literally everything in that team fight to pull it. We have the Rift Herald, let's push before those big ultimates come back up and they can fight us once more.
now for Phelan. It's all about making sure that they are in control of the vision. I mean, when you look at it, so much vision on the blue side already. Wind and Rain have complete control over this enemy jungle, which is exactly what you need when you want to make sure you don't find yourself in trouble. Crossman is going to be fine, able to get away from that one here, and Salty's starting to find some of these wards that have been placed into the jungle.
Yeah, I think you're seeing Phelan start to slowly try to regain control of the map. War playing much better in the early game. Phelan finding that opening and now trying to see if they can keep pushing that lead, but instead it's Wind and Rain almost catching them out there.
I mean, the thing that Wind and Rain know is that Akers does not have his teleport. And so that big Malphite ultimate is sitting on the bot side of the map. And so whilst Phelan are pushing forward as 4 and saying, you know, we're very strong, maybe not as strong without that Malphite to really lock up some key targets.
Yeah, but I mean, we've already seen that Nocturne does have the ability to almost one-shot Lucian out of a fight. See if he can do that consistently, and I like that Lucian going for the classic Black Cleaver Blade of the Rune King will give him that little bit of tankiness to survive a bit longer.
So where do we go from here? We've got Baron spawning in about 1:20 seconds here. Phelan clearly going to play more of a reactive game for now, but really you want to start to see them be the ones pulling the punches and setting up some team fights.
I think, as you mentioned, you have Baron coming up in a minute. Establish vision, because all you want from Phelan is to force them to either start it or be in that area so you can turn it into a big team fight for yourselves. We talked about so much about how all they want to do is team fight.
Here we go. It's going to be another fight coming out, but it's not really one when there's so much escape on the side of War.
I think he was hoping that it would be a commitment because you had Akers just out of vision behind them, and it could have been another big team fight for them.
Crossman showing aggression, not going to commit too hard to this just yet. That's the dangerous though. Every paranoia that goes to waste is just so much relief already for War that they can kind of just play a little bit more aggressively and push out just a little bit more.
Yeah, but it has given Phelan now the momentum. They have been able to establish vision over Baron. We were just talking about how that is important for them. See if they can use it here. See if they can find themselves a fight near it.
Here. Yeah, no teleport on Kerberos. This is going to be potentially a tower dive. Here we go. Let's see if they do manage to get there. Potentially just going to look to put Crasher. I like this, actually. No need to team fight. Take the tower. You need the gold. Then you can fall back and find something elsewhere.
But it did force Wind and Rain back, which is just as good for them. They managed to get themselves effectively a free objective just from existing in the same area.
And the recalls stopped up as well. Here we go.
Kerberos
Crossman going over the wall. Great tomb to keep himself alive, but now he's in the middle of it all. Brummel knocks him up, and he will be resurrecting. Akers finding the Lucian over the wall, but Kerberos all this time is split pushing. Crossman trying to get into the action. Aether takes down the Jax. True Shot Barrage almost finding the kill, but another great Zhonya's to keep them alive. Can Proper Panda get onto Fax? No, he can't. And the inhibitor has gone down. What do you not do against Kerberos? You don't let him split push. That is 101 here for War.
Yeah, and he even managed to get the wave the whole way into the Nexus towers. Really, really good from War. Managed to find the Lysandra into the center of the fight and just waste time with the Lysandra and Zillion ults.
Yeah, really fantastic. And you can see that moment where it all went wrong, really, for Phelan coming up on the replay. It's when Akers kind of got stopped in his recall. He wanted to go back and try and face off, and then he gets stopped a second time. This is the second time that he gets stopped with Crossman diving over.
Yeah. I mean, Lysandra, all she needs to do is ult herself, sit in the center of the fight, then Akatsune gets in range and goes, actually, I know how to waste more time. I'm going to ult you as well, make you survive that bit longer. And the fight almost gets turned around here. You see Akers go down. It's 1-for-1, and they are more than happy to take that because they get the inhib with it.
It's an incredible play, really. You know, like we mentioned already, Kerberos is just going to want to be that split-pushing threat. He wants to try and take a matchup where he can win that 1v1 outright. Camille, obviously a champion that is just so good at dueling. It's in her name. And you know, when you allow Kerberos to push like that, even without the teleport, that's the main thing. Kerberos did not have teleport, and so for Phelan, they felt like they were making the right play. They were just too slow to commit, and then afterwards, too slow to get back.
Yeah, and I think from here we were talking about that Wind and Rain have more experience and how they should be playing the map better. We're seeing that here from them today.
Baron is on to the Rift here. It's going to be the focal point, you would think. And there's any way that Wind and Rain lose the game, it's a massive team fight around Baron where Akers lands the key ultimate. The shockwave comes through as well.
They've made that so much harder for Phelan to commit to, though, because they've taken the bot lane inhib. One of the best ones to get pre-Baron fight, because it just forces your top laner to stay there and look for a TP. He can never be present around the Baron pit, especially a Malphite who can't counter push very well.
True Shot Barrage just going through. Vision. Frostman threatening. Right now, Phelan not really wanting to do anything but try and keep Wind and Rain at bay here.
Yeah, I mean, Wind and Rain are already sitting on a very comfortable 4.5 gold lead. They don't really need to force because they're continuing to pull ahead. And now that they know you have the Malphite committed to the bot lane, you've cleared out all the vision, let's take this.
Yeah, Jarden's been kept in the top lane. In fact, Kerberos might even look for the fight now. Just backing off here is the Baron at half health. It is going to start to get noticed. The ward has been placed over the wall. We'll have to see if there is a hard commit coming out of Phelan. In fact, Wind and Rain just completely respecting the teamfight ability and backing away.
Again, we're saying they're in the lead. No need to force anything. You see Phelan just leaving Malphite in the bot lane. It's not the ideal play at all for Wind and Rain, actually.
Never mind. Proper Panda wants to go in, but then has to flash away, trying to keep Wind and Rain locked up around this Baron pit longer. Not really anything to gain from that. No summoners blown apart from Proper Pandas there. And of course, you know, if Proper Panda was to go down, then you have no smite contest. That Baron suddenly becomes free and this game is suddenly over.
I like it though. They looked for the quick pick, couldn't quite make it work, so it ends up looking a little goofy because he does have to flash out. But at the same time, I think it's the right idea. You're playing this Nocturne. You want to consistently look for the slight openings that Wind and Rain might leave.
Currently, Aka's continuously being locked up in this bot side. Cobra's actually going to match him just a bit here, make sure that wave does push further and further. Maybe we see Wind and Rain, you know, look to potentially pressure up towards this top side here. The vision is being stolen away, trying to remove everything that Phelan so desperately wanted to place down here. But really, it's just a game of time. Wind and Rain very happy to play this dance.
Yeah, and they've decided they're actually going to commit Kerberos to the bot lane to guarantee Malphite won't be able to join the fight this time. I don't disagree with this. I think the 4v4 is still very strong from Wind and Rain because they have this lead.
For Phelan, how do they get back into this? I'm assuming it's just you team fight. You just team fight.
You team fight and you get out of it quick enough that Kerberos can't pick up towers.
Thinking of that, Aether potentially in trouble. Here comes Nolty with a lockup. Locked out of this fight. The main damage source gone and the hook shot over the wall. Great Bromo, knocking everyone up, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough. The shockwave goes down. The Hextech ultimatum to make sure he does not escape. That's going to be a free tower coming through. In fact, it's so good we're going to show it twice. And now Wind and Rain going to head on over to the Baron and look to take that one out, you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's a 3v5 if they try to contest this. You have to hope that Nocturne could steal it from Phelan's side, but it doesn't look likely. And just a really nice pickup from Wind and Rain, willing to commit everything very suddenly onto Aether, who thought he was safe.
That's the thing, though. One misstep from Aether, really the main damage source of the team, the one who's going to provide that sustain, and it's all over. Here comes the hook shot over the wall. Proper Panda gets melted. That's going to mean this Baron is free for Wind and Rain. No contest, unless the true shot was suddenly to get, you know, 1,000,000 damage and take that one away. Baron to Wind and Rain, and now it's home time to consider how we're going to close out.
Yeah, I mean, you still have that open inhib in the bot lane. You can try commit someone to there. Realistically, from Wind and Rain, all you need to do is 104. Make sure Camille's in her own lane, make sure they're not committed as 5 members from Phelan, and you should be able to round this one out quite comfortably. 7.5k gold in the lead.
I mean, this is the dangerous thing, though. Closer you get to the base, the easier it is to regroup. Akka suddenly becomes a little bit more centralized to the team fight. Wind and Rain, of course, they're going to just look for that pick if possible, but it's much harder at this stage.
No, don't take their cloud. Not the cloud. You can see Jax leaning down towards there. Could take it away.
Could.
Decides that, hey, I think the game is more important. We should probably win that instead.
Take Drake or take the Nexus. It's a hard choice.
Leaning towards the Nexus here. I could respect the decision, but speaking of respect, you can see Wind and Rain respecting the 5v5 coming out from Phelan. Not willing to hard commit themselves upwards, knowing that Malphite can just click on them. Yeah,
Kerberos in the top side. Just looking to put pressure. The wave was a little bit better for him to be up there. In fact, we're going to see Jarden being the one to match as Aka's finally does get on over. So important for Phelan that they play this as best as possible. It's hard, though, with those cannon waves just chunking away at your tower.
Yeah, I mean, finding the picks has been made extremely difficult, and you have to credit Wind and Rain for that. Every time they've looked for the quick picks with Nocturne, aside from that one fight in the bot lane, you've had the whole team just suddenly collapse around. You've had Camille hookshot in, Crossman willing to ult himself in the center of the fight, and just be a massive distraction. while Kerberos has been their stalwart in the top lane.
Oh, they're looking for the fight here. Gonna dive on in. Gonna be that Zhonya's coming through. There's the Frozen Tomb, and now we're gonna see, of course, a resurrection if necessary, but everyone backs off because look what's happening to your base.
Double split push.
It's the double split push from the Jax and the Camille. One inhibitor down, an inhibitor tower gone down in the top side. That's gonna mean the inhibitor falls as well. And Wind and Rain have just broken apart Phelan. The commit was not strong enough. Now it's gonna be towers pushed on down. You don't have ultimates ready to go. It's gonna be desperate defense from the side of Phelan. I don't think it's gonna happen. Akka's gonna get locked up here as we dive on into the fight once more. Good shockwave locking up that Jax, but Nolty's gonna be fine. Has that Zillion resurrect to go. Of course, gonna be left alone, and there it is. Triple and hip down. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Go back to base, and we can come back later.
Yeah, they can back, regroup, go, okay, we got all 3 inhibs. We're gonna have these massive super waves coming in. Should be a clean finish for them. Phelan can make a last-ditch effort with their team fight. Can they make it work? Probably not, but I want to see them try.
Of course, you know, you have to commit when you go for that wombo combo. It's all about the trying, Celtic Tiger.
Yeah, I mean, they can only try so much, though. With Ward this far ahead, you're pretty much 1 item at least ahead on every person in the game. Yeah, not ideal, for sure. See what they can do. I'm optimistic. I think they can pull off 1 team fight just before they go down.
There you go. I like it. You have to rep Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can. I don't think they will, but I definitely think it's possible. For sure.
Yeah, no,
I have to rep Ireland, but I also have to rep myself. I'm not going to be the one analyst who predicts everything's possible.
And of course, I mean, we're at this stage now where the triple inhibs are down. You know, the Death Note has been signed. What do you think Phelan are considering? Well, you know, game 2 right around the corner. Where did it all go wrong? Was it just the jungle pressure from Nolty?
I think you have to look at, okay, we had this top lane, we kind of slowed it down, and then suddenly he got inhib while they forced us to fight. So, need to be looking at how they maintain map control, especially towards the mid game.
Look how split they are, Wind and Rain. Everyone is in every corner of this space, making sure that there will be no wombo combo team fight as these Nexus towers start to fall. First one will go down, and Phelan not giving the opportunity to engage here. So important. Paranoia to scare them off, but they ain't scared of nothing. They're going to lock up Akka's. Diving on in, Crossman the target, going to get in there. Akka's tries to knock up, but he just loses his life. The rest of Phelan are caught falling back. Not quite able to take anyone else down, but it does not matter because the Nexus is the target, and Wind and Rain going to take game 1 of the series.
I mean, look, they gave it a good effort. They kind of slowed it down in the early game, but Wind and Rain just looking that bit stronger, that much more experienced.
And that's the main thing. Ox, hey.
Hey, I'm back. Yeah.
Hey, welcome back.
Yeah,
how
back
you
from
doing?
the jail you locked me in.
Hope it was comfortable.
Yeah, it was alright, can't complain.
You
But
know.
yeah, that game. I think my talking point really has to be this Nocturne pick. Obviously prioritized really early, it was the first pick for Phelan, but it just really didn't get much work. I mean, there was one ult bot lane where Fax used his dash in, and then a bit of a misplay with a Zillion. But aside from that, it just felt like every single ult was used, and then nothing happened. And I think, I mean, credit to Wind and Rain for drafting things like Lysandra, like the Camille, are very safe. But if you pick a comp that is very reliant on this Nocturne, and the ult never does anything, you're not going to have a good time.
And that's really important, you know, Wind and Rain, even when that first Paranoia came out, it was the instant collapse that came through from Nolty, able to just buy time with the Lysandra ultimate. Crossman, you know, such good usage of the Zhonya's, the Lysandra ultimate, and then Zillion.
Yeah, I mean, I actually want to give Crossman a giant shout out because he has definitely shown up for his team.
Yep.
All he needed to be was a distraction, and he was the most distracting player in the middle of a fight that I have ever seen. Lysandra ult, you got the Zillion ult, and even just constantly just willing to claw his way in. Yeah, no, that's really important to point out is that he constantly baited in. It meant that Fax of the backline could be such a threat. It meant that Kerberos could dive in and, you know, really lock someone down if necessary. You even saw on that last double split push, he actually E'd forward, knowing that as soon as he throws that, he has no mobility. But he has his Zhonya's, he has his ult, and that's more than enough for them to get the double inhib and then the triple. Yeah, the triple play, so important. That was where the game was well and truly over, but, you know, there were signs to begin with. Every time that Phelan tried to make a move, apart from that one bot team fight, it just wasn't really met. Yeah, I feel like that was the only successful team fight, and that was off the back of, honestly, a misplay from Wind and Rain. I felt like the problem was your main engage is on the Malphite. I mean, obviously Nocturne can go in, but it's hard to really lock them down. Yep. The Malphite is permanently trapped in a lane with the Camille. You know, that matchup, if you leave the lane,
Camille's just going to murder your tower, and you can see that's what happened when they try to force with the Malphite.
Let's get a recap of how this one did go out. This is that first fight coming through Celtic.
Yeah, and I mean, they just didn't have the damage there to take out Lysandra quickly, and we talked about how Nolte was able to predict the pathing, and Wind and Rain with the mid-jungle combo have been doing really well.
Yeah, Nolte was always showing up, but like, just at the top side of this, you just see the Camille come down. Like, that's the team communication coming through.
Like that little boop at the end.
Right, he's like, I was here. Here's that fight that just didn't go quite right for Wind and Rain. Hard committing here, Ox, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah, and it was you can see a bit of panic because they used the Zillion ult when all the damage already come down, and then the problem is there's a bit of miscommunication. Crossman goes in, Nolte goes in, they use all their CC on the backline, who are just going to back away into the tower, and then the rest of Phelan there to turn it around.
Yeah, and I mean, we see that again. You see, as we were talking about, Lysandra is willing to just go into the center of the fight to distract them. Well, they just got an inhib off this. And, I mean, I will say I wasn't super convinced with Zillion in this game. I think that was the one ult I thought was well-timed.
Right.
However, the double bombs were fine. I wouldn't be rushing to pick it again if I was Akatsune, though.
It was one of those things that it worked quite well when it worked, and then that's about it.
Yeah.
That Aether getting caught out here was the lead to the demise. I mean, at this point, Phelan kind of showed that they could team fight and that it was going to work out, but this is where the Baron was secured for Wind and Rain, and that was pretty much game over right there.
I mean, that was the issue. Once you lost that inhibitor, it's not just the pressure from the Camille, you have the pressure from the super minions. They felt like they had to force even more, and they just weren't able to find team fights. I mean, we're seeing the end fight. At this point, the game was pretty much done, and I mean, for Phelan, you have to go in the next game and just sort of think, right, we've tried to pick a team fight composition. We picked a Nocturne early on because we wanted to sort of get the engages, get some picks, and it just didn't work. And I think you really need to change up your draft and go for a different strategy. Maybe have a more reliable jungler who's got a better time of locking people down, so you can facilitate the rest of your team. Because I think, honestly, the laners in mid and bot did fine. They weren't actually, like, you know, punished massively. It was only that they fell behind in terms of macro, and the split push was a massive threat.
And that top side, you know, where we saw Phelan get caught out, it was off a really good play by them. You know, they positioned well. Akers roamed down at a very key time that they could take the tower. It was just the back away that didn't come through. That's what allowed for Kerberos to stay placed in that bot side. That's what allowed for Crossmen to kind of make the punishing plays over the wall. If Phelan were to just kind of clean up that macro gameplay a little bit better, safe recall as far away as possible, so that because it was twice. Akers got caught up. He recalled middle lane, got caught out, went to the side bush, and got caught out again. You know, you can't be making those kind of small mistakes, because these kind of players, Wind and Rain and veterans of the UK scene, these Premiership teams, are going to punish you.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem when you have a composition that relies on your top laner as your primary engage, and he's against the split pusher. You feel like you constantly have to be there in the team fight to provide the engage. At the same time, you constantly have to be defending against this Camille, and there's very small windows, and we saw what happened when he missed it. You lose an inhib, and even more, and it's just not a position you want to draft yourself into. Yeah,
and for Akers, you know, like you mentioned, this is kind of his UK debut. You know, he's played in some lower divisions, but this is the big league now, and he is quite young, and so there's a lot of time for like experience to start to soak in, but Kerberos has been here forever, and he's going to continue to punish as much as possible. What are we thinking? You know, do we change the comp up entirely? You mentioned maybe going away from this all-in wombo combo team fighting style.
I think it's fine. I mean, I think the main thing for me is have some more engage on the rest of your team. I mean, yes, Nocturne can engage in lone, but you have an Orianna and an Ezreal, and the way they were using it, just, I mean, it's hard to execute. I think if they put a more consistent engage in support, something like a Rakan or an Alistair, they have a much better time forcing team fights.
I'd actually even look a little bit earlier, and you can see that, you know, they were forced themselves into this AD carry early pick. If they'd managed to pick themselves up the Shen or Ornn there, it would have been a lot easier to force those fights.
Yeah, I think that was a good point, because they forced themselves. They were either, do we want an AD carry, or do you want a good top lane matchup? And they got the AD carry.
And that's the important thing to note. We already mentioned that the importance of Lucian would be that the teams would pretty much first pick him here. Now, Phelan going to be on that first side. They can first pick that Lucian already. That's a really good feels good when you get to that point. But that's the one thing that they're really going to be looking for.
I'm really looking forward to seeing if they can actually manage to turn it around. I was hoping the Irish Org would have a little bit more to show here, and I think they have one more game to do so.
I mean, yeah, well, they do. If they lose this one, then that's them done for this scoring tournament, and that's them finishing in that, you know, 5th to 8th position.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing. I think, yes, they're a bit inexperienced, but you got to just sort of push through that and go, we still have a series.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got I think a little break coming up here, so we will throw it back to that. But when we do return, it is going to be that second game. It is going to be Phelan fighting for their lives here, Wind and Rain. Such a formidable squad. We'll see if they can do it shortly.